to be able to endure physical and mental pain for a long period of time and defeat those thoughts within your head.
Have you enjoyed SAS Who Dare Wins so far?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been a fun ride. Got to work with some great guys, with Billy, Foxy, and Rudy, and learn from them and learn the UK way of doing things to be a little bit more proper. And obviously the backdrop was very beautiful in Jordan. And, one of the main reasons why I signed up for the program is because I always had a passion to give back and serve, utilizing my experiences, not just my military experiences, but also my experience in life, growing up in a single parent home, facing adversity, ending up on the wrong side of the tracks, and just taking those experiences and passing them on to the recruits and helping walk them through the battles that they face in life. So that part of the show has been the best part of it. And that was the impetus for why I decided to sign up. So with all that said, yeah, it's been a fantastic experience.
You were just the 51st Black Navy SEAL in the US Special Forces. How can they create a more inclusive culture to attract better and more candidates?
Yeah, I want to say I was exactly the 51st. I was around the 50th African-American to become a Navy SEAL. As far as how to expand it, I think from my perspective and my vantage point, because I've worked with the Motivators Office and recruiting departments as it relates to SEALs, and I think they're doing absolutely everything that needs to be done to bring more minorities into the program. I think it falls on society and culture, in my opinion. Growing up in the Bronx, the education system was really, really bad. And so the kids don't have the exposure, in history class, or you're not getting the lessons about special operations and the different branches of the service, and then, as far as the pools, growing up in the inner city, there were no pools around where I lived. In order to be a SEAL, you have to know how to swim. So all of the tools that one needs in order to just qualify to get into training, and at least the communities where I grew up in, they're non-existent. You don't have the education, you don't have the schools, you don't have the recruiters coming out en masse like in suburban areas, and because that's non-existent, people don't know about it. If you don't know about something, you're not going to do it. What I did know about in the Bronx was drug dealing, playing sports, and rapping. So I played sports, I sold drugs, and I rapped, right? So you're going to do what you know. My brother, he was very different from me, and he ended up becoming an engineer, specifically a computer science engineer and an electrical engineer. And one of the reasons why he ended up becoming an engineer was because our father was an engineer. So he had exposure to engineering through, papers that my dad left behind and other items. So he knew that, this opportunity is available to me. I can do this. And he ended up becoming an engineer. I didn't know anything about the SEAL teams until I watched the movie and saw what Navy SEALs were, what they did, and that was my motivation. So I think it really falls more on society and media plays a huge role in there, from films to TV. Show more Black Navy SEAls and portray more Black Navy SEAls in movies, portray more Black Navy SEAls in TV. Just like Who Dares Wins. Bring an African American or Black SEAL on the show, and when kids see that from different walks of life, especially Blacks or African Americans, they're like, oh wow, like Remi's doing it, he did it. Maybe that's something I could do, because they see themselves in me. So I think that's where the change starts.
Losing your father at such a young age and moving to the Bronx, what adversity did you overcome to become the success you are now?
Well, the biggest adversity I had to overcome was myself. I had to learn not to believe the narrative that my only options were drug dealing, playing sports, or fighting, or rapping. I had to. It took a lot of soul searching on my end. So I would say the biggest adversity that I had to overcome was the lies that I was told my entire life. Because you're young, because you're Black, and you grow up in this environment, this is all you can become. This is all that's available to you. And interestingly, as a young kid, I never thought that I would even make it out of the Bronx. Like anything past, the 5 boroughs of New York City was absolutely foreign to me. And a lot of other kids who come from the environment, like stepping out of that environment and going to California, or going to Florida, or traveling the world, it's like, that doesn't happen. And so I had to break down those negative beliefs and change my way of thinking, and that in and of itself was a complete challenge. And it took me going through a very bad situation, I'll just leave it at that kind of began to open up my mind and change the way I thought, and essentially led to me giving up my life of crime and making the decision to join the military. So that was the biggest adversity, was my self-belief.
And what would you say the most transferable skills from the US Special Forces to everyday life?
Oh, there's so many transferable skills. As a matter of fact, before I worked with Who Dares Wins, I own a consulting company. I still do, where we run pro athletes, collegiate athletes, and Olympians through and corporations through mental toughness, critical thinking, and team building principles that translate from special operations into those specific communities, sports and business. And so, some I already mentioned, mental toughness, that's something that translates so much. And 4 pillars of mental toughness: positive self-talk. I already kind of touched on that as it relates to my life. Visualization, arousal control, goal setting. Those are all things that we utilize in training as SEALs, and then also overseas. And that's a principle. The 4 pillars of mental toughness, those are principles that can be applied in everyday life and easily transferable through lessons. Communication, it's not just about what you communicate, it's about how you communicate what you communicate. That's a huge thing that I learned in special operations. My background, I was a medic, but I was also a human guy. So I worked in human intelligence. So I've gone to various schools, from the NSA interagency. I trained with CIA guys and DIA guys. And then I was the guy who went overseas and collected intelligence through meeting with sources and locals and building intelligence packages, and then taking that information and going on missions, direct action missions, based off of the intelligence that I collected. So a lot of what I did in source handling, a big part of it was communication, receiving information, but being able to really ask those probing questions that's going to lead to that's going to clarify the answers and clarify the information that you're receiving, and being able to read verbal cues and know when somebody's lying, knowing that all of that stuff applies to business, especially when you're in a negotiation with a company and you have to negotiate a deal. Like all of those tools, those pieces that, I learned, and that essentially on my end, it meant the difference between life or death. In the boardroom, it can make the difference between, losing $1 million and making $1 billion. So, that's another tool. I can go on, list goes on and on, but I'll just leave it there.
What mental strength is needed to become a Navy SEAL?
I think I kind of touched on it, but point blank, you just have to have mental strength, period. It's that straightforward. You have to be able to endure physical and mental pain for a long period of time, and defeat those thoughts within your head. It's just toughing it out. It's pushing through something that, in my opinion, I don't think can really be explained until you find yourself in a situation where you have to do it. That's why, when I run pro athletes and collegiate athletes and corporations through my training, it's more than just a talk. Like, I don't believe in just going up in the classroom and just giving a talk. If that's what it boils down to, I could do that, but it's the practical application where you get somebody out and you put them in a situation where you've talked about mental toughness. Now you can allow them to apply those principles. And that's just what mental toughness is. Sometimes it's inexplainable. You could talk about it and try and break it down and decipher it, but until you're in the actual situation where you have to apply it, that's when you really discover what it is. And so in essence, in this most sublimated term definition, I would just say it's pushing through. It's the ability to be able to endure torment and pain and torture not just physical, but also mental, and keep going. And stability to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which, a lot of people, especially now in our time and age and culture, have a hard time because everything is just handed to us so instantaneously.